You all can hear me, right? Great. So if you'd like us to come back to talk about any topic, we would be happy to. But just for today, so our learning objectives are for us to be able to explain gambling and features in games that resemble gambling, for you to identify risk and protective factors, as including warning signs of gambling or gaming becoming a problematic behavior, compare the similarities and differences between gambling and substance misuse behaviors and brain biology, understand the progression of gambling and related issues and prevalence in Connecticut, and then for you to obtain some resources, harm reduction strategies, and information on the gambling awareness teams we have in our state. So more about us. So Problem Gambling Services falls within statewide services with the Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. Our office is in the Office of the Commissioner, and our office is located in Middletown in Russell Hall at Connecticut Valley Hospital. The funding we receive is made from a legislative mandate into the Chronic Gamblers Treatment and Rehabilitation Account to oversee prevention, treatment, education, and integration efforts for our state. And the Connecticut Council, as you can see at the bottom of the graph, they are our nonprofit partner that focuses on community outreach, education, advocacy efforts, and they administer the 24/7 problem gambling helpline that is in our state that we're going to get into a little later. Just some additional information. So when Connecticut restructured the prevention infrastructure about 5 years ago now, gambling was infused into the overall mission, funding, and deliverables, and that is through the Regional Behavioral Health Action Organization, so the RBHAOs. You're all part of your region. Dina, I believe you were in Region 2. Is that correct? Region 2. I keep talking to Dina, and she probably put herself on mute for the presentation. So yes, you're.
Yes, correct. All right.
Yeah. So that way gambling is included into the initiatives. It follows the strategic prevention framework. All of our initiatives are research-based, data-driven, a lot of what you are doing with the substances that you're working with. Moving down, so right in the middle of our graph here. So here in Connecticut, we have gambling specific treatment programs called Better Choice. And those treatment programs offer a variety of outpatient services, including individual, group, and family counseling for individuals experiencing problems with gambling and those affected, such as loved ones. Spouses, children. Services are provided at little to no cost, and these programs also include recovery support specialists who are individuals with lived experience that can help clients throughout their recovery. And then last on the right, you'll see where it says DIGIN, our integration program. So DIGIN stands for Disordered Gambling Integration, and it is an initiative that makes gambling problems and behavior a relevant topic of conversation when treatment is already being provided for either a substance use or mental health disorder. So this enables the provider to address gambling and problem gambling through enhanced screening, assessment, awareness, intervention, and their recovery and health promotion strategies. So we do have 2 videos we're not going to show you for these purposes, but DMLWC and CCPG, we partnered with TTASC, which is the Training and Technical Assistance Service Center. And so they're about 2 minutes each. We'll show you after where they're located, but they are an overview of all the services that Problem Gambling Services and CCPG have to offer. So we'll make sure we get you those links. It's also important for us to mention that both Problem Gambling Services and the Connecticut Council, we're gambling neutral. So we are neither for or against gambling. We recognize that gambling is a source of entertainment for many and often supports worthy causes such as charitable raffles, coalition fundraisers. So although there is a fun or hobby aspect, there are also risks. So with that in mind, we do have 3 goals. And first is to build education and awareness that gambling is not a risk-free activity. So whether that's by increasing community education on topics such as financial literacy, the odds of winning, how gambling metrics work, or even having the consistent message to not gamble something you can't afford to lose. Second is informing residents within our state and providing them with strategies to keep the problem out of gambling. And so that can include examples such as as only gambling with cash, only having a budgeted amount of money to play with, knowing the warning signs of a problem developing, or understanding how the self-exclusion process works, which we'll talk about the new online portal a little bit later. And third is being aware that help is available for people with gambling problems and those affected, again, such as children, spouses, as loved ones. The helpline right here on the screen is 24/7. It will connect the person calling to a counselor within 24 hours of making the call. Kaitlin on the phone here. Up until recently, if you called during normal business hours, she would answer the phone all the time. They have, since the gambling expansion, which we'll also talk about, they've been able to add additional staff. So you might get Kaitlin if you call, but you might get some of her very talented team members as well. All right, so that's enough from me. Here's now Kaitlin.
Thank you, Kelly. So just to get us started off so that we are all on the same page of when we're throwing around language. So when we're talking about gambling for this presentation, we're talking about risking something of value on an activity that has an uncertain outcome. And then when we're talking about gaming, we're talking about playing electronic games through a phone, computer, tablet, something like that. We like to make this distinction because the industry will use the word gaming to refer to gambling. So for this presentation, when we're talking about gaming, we're really talking about video games, and gambling is pretty much everything else. And then the next slide is talking about a few other definitions just so that we can all be on the same page. We are going to be talking about responsible gambling, which is ways in which games of chance are both offered and participated in socially responsible ways. So we say responsible, we say safe, we say keeping it fun or for entertainment, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then problem gambling is really when people start to show some negative consequences associated with their gambling behavior. And then on the right-hand side, when we talk about gambling disorder, we're talking about the clinical terms. So someone would need to be diagnosed with a gambling disorder by meeting 4 out of the 9 criteria through the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which therapists, psychiatrists, counselors use. And then this is the type of gambling that we're going to talk a lot about, different types of gambling. We still say lottery is the most popular, which is why it's at the top. We're also going to get into some about the casino gambling, off-track betting, sports betting and fantasy sports, which was part of the expansion. So we're going to dive deep into that. Charitable games like raffles, internet gambling, so anything that's offered online. We are seeing an increase in people having issues related to stock market or day trading. And then also one of the emerging trends that we are seeing is cryptocurrency. And so we're going to get into talking about all the different types of gambling that is offered here in Connecticut. So the first one is the Connecticut Lottery. So this was brought to Connecticut back in 1971. There's over 2,800 retailers throughout the state of Connecticut, has multiple different games. All of them are based on chance, and they offer scratch tickets, which are most popular. So probably people, when they think of the lottery, they're going to be thinking about scratch tickets. They also offer Keno, which is a game that you can play with numbers that is offered every 4 minutes. Powerball, Mega Millions, Lotto, and then a bunch of other games that are offered. You can check out their website if you're interested about all the different types of games that they offer, but they're constantly adding new types of games. In early 2022, these lottery games outside of scratch tickets will be offered online. So that was part of the expansion, but it has not hit effect yet. And then October 2021, they collaborated with Play Sugar House Sportsbook, and that's when they started to be able to offer the sports betting as well as part of their platform. And then for the lottery, for all those games that I had mentioned outside of sports betting, you do have to be 18 years old to participate. And then moving right along to the casinos, which is another super popular form of gambling here in Connecticut. We have 2 of the largest casinos. So Foxwoods was built back in 1986. It actually is the largest resort casino in North America. It's known for having over 3,500 slot machines, 4 casino floors to choose from. Both of these casinos do say they are in the business of hospitality. So they're very resort-like style casinos. They also offer online gambling. So with the expansion back in October 2021, both of them were able to partner with different ones. So Foxwoods is now with DraftKings. You do have to be 21 years old to participate in that. And then Mohegan Sun partnered with FanDuel, which is another popular sports betting application. So Mohegan Sun was built in 1996. This is known as one of the world's most amazing destinations, as Kelly says when she does the slide, according to their website. There's more than 300,000 square feet of gaming, including a state-of-the-art poker room, table games, keno, and race book. They also do offer online casino gambling, and also everything is 24/7. And like I said before, this is also offered in person through kiosks, and then there's also online sports betting too. And that is also 21 years of age, except when we talk about fantasy sports, which is actually 18, and we're going to get into that as well. And then the next slide is talking about SportsTech, which is another partner in the state that we work closely with the Connecticut Council on Problem Gambling. They actually are the world's leading provider in computerized wagering, and they're mostly known for their off-track betting sites, which is mostly horse racing. They used to do the greyhound racing, also had racinos. They have internet wagering websites, casinos, race books, sports books, and then they used to have Highlight, which I don't believe they have anymore. This was legalized back in 1976. And like I said, the most popular form before sports betting was legal was the horse racing. And there's actually 15 OTB locations currently in Connecticut. So they're usually, you would probably recognize them as in New Haven. So they have Sports Haven, they have Winners, they have Bobby V's. So those are some of the locations that you could participate in this type of gambling. I'm going to turn it over to Fred.
Thank you, Kaitlin. All right, I'm going to continue the legalized forms of gambling conversation, and starting with sports betting for my area. So when you think about sports betting, on the most traditional sense, it's placing a bet on one team versus another team, or maybe one player versus another player in a particular contest. And if your player wins or your team wins, you would win that bet. Now, in the traditional sense, that's how it looks. But when we look at legalized sports betting in Connecticut, there's a lot of different variables that are at play. Oftentimes there will be odds. There will be someone that's favored over the other. There'll be an opportunity to see who's going to score more points to win, the combined total of points in the game. So many different variables go into play when sports betting is looked at. A couple areas we're going to talk about more in depth are prop betting and in-play sports betting. So prop bet is an opportunity to place a bet on, maybe how many yards a quarterback is going to throw in a particular game if we're looking at football. Maybe how many home runs someone will hit if we're looking at baseball. Not only is it considered within the game, but there's also elements that really don't reflect as much on the game, where you can place a bet on, will the coin toss be heads or tails? Or for some might be how long the national anthem will be sung, above or below a certain amount of time. So different variables. And when you think about it like that, that can equate to many different types of bets that go beyond sports. If we look at in-play betting, so that's the opportunity where you can place bets from the very beginning of the game to the very end. Europe, that's been participating in sports betting for years, has reported from the industry that this is one of the ways that they're making a significant amount of income. So if you think about it, it's not just the outcome of the game, it is throughout the whole duration. So I can choose what I think the next play is going to be. If I'm looking at football, is it going to be a run? Is it going to be a pass? Will the defense call a blitz? Is somebody who's going to catch the next touchdown, or who's going to run the next running play? Many different variables that are considered here. So there's a lot of opportunity to have different forms of action when it comes to sports betting in Connecticut. If we think about fantasy sports, so on the traditional sense, you're assembling imaginary teams using the statistics of real life players. So if I'm thinking about football, I need to assemble my lineup. So it's not going to be everybody from the same team like it might be with sports betting. I might need a quarterback. So Tom Brady just came out of retirement. So, he might be my quarterback. I'm going to need a running back. I'll need wide receivers. And they're from different teams. So it's not just one particular team versus the other. And based on what happens in real life, so let's say Tom Brady throws 3 touchdowns, that's going to impact how my fantasy team does. And you go head to head against others for the duration of the season. So this is something that can be with gambling. If you're putting money or something of value on the outcome of the tournament or the traditional season, or it could be for free. You know, if you're getting together with family members, friends, and loved ones, nothing is being wagered. You're doing it for just the fun of the tournament, the event, then gambling isn't necessary. So what has happened with traditional fantasy sports? Several years back, it was condensed into just a particular contest or in one day called daily fantasy sports. So, you know, the basketball season is prevalent right now. So if we can create a daily fantasy sports contest based on just one of the games that's occurring today, and you have less players than you would for traditional, but it's at a quicker speed. It occurs over just that one day period, and you can move on. And there are numerous different types of daily fantasy sports contests that you can put money on over a particular time. Esports is looking at competitive video gaming. So it can be for your traditional sports like a football, like a baseball, soccer type of game, but the most popular ones are multiplayer online battle arenas where you have one team versus another team, and the last team standing is the winner. Now, for those that are working directly with youth, you know, you may have heard about esports and the popularity of it. It's extremely popular. You know, youth, adults as well can watch it on YouTube, Mixer, Twitch, where there's live tournaments that are streaming. It's a $1 billion industry. And if you think about it from the gambling perspective, so if you have youth that are together and they place a wager on a particular contest, or if you think about youth, it's not just all about the money. Sneakers, there might be some sporting cards that are popular, other items that might be wagered on the outcome of the event. We're integrating gambling into that tournament or that contest there. And it's not all just about gambling. You know, esports has been really popular among youth in general. There are varsity teams for esports, college scholarships that are available for esports. So if you think about a youth that just didn't feel comfortable going out for the soccer team, the football team, this is another way for them to participate in that type of athletics, build some leadership skills without going into an area where they didn't feel as comfortable. So, you know, some of the elements that gambling can integrate into there, but there's also positive aspects of it too. So Raffle. So, you know, before today, you may not have thought about Raffle as a form of gambling, but if you think about it, so if I want to purchase a raffle ticket, I have to wager something, and it's not certain that I'm going to win the particular item that I purchased that ticket for. So that uncertainty, if I'm going to win, putting something of value on the line, enters gambling there. So charitable games, there is no legal age for charitable games. So you can have a 50-50 raffle at the school, at youth sporting events. You know, silent auctions are there, Vegas nights that had occurred, or I don't know if they occur as frequently now, but I know when I was younger, there was Vegas nights in my high school and other events that would mirror that charitable type of gambling game. So raffle ticket is something that can be considered gambling, maybe more lower risk than some of the other forms of gambling we see out there, but nonetheless, still a form of gambling. So internet gambling. So with our recent expansion of gambling, so sports betting was integrated, as I was talking about before. Online gambling is something that was legalized as well this past year. So sports betting and online gambling went into effect in October, and both are bringing a significant amount of income into the state. You know, I was looking at some of the income that came in from sports betting and online casinos just this past January. And over $3 million came in from the state just from online gambling, where sports betting was a little over $1 million. So there's a lot of income coming to the state from online casino gambling. And as Kaitlin was talking about when she mentioned Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun, they are the only two providers for online casino gambling in our state. So the traditional games that you would see at the casinos, you can now do on your phone. You know, that distance has gone from, you know, maybe being a far car ride away to now just being right in front of me on my phone. So that it has changed things dramatically. So Connecticut decided to legalize online casinos, but it's dependent on the state. So our state has it, other states may not have it. Prior to online casino gambling, we had some free type of casino type of games that were on Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun site that, you know, mirrored the gambling, but it was more free to play. And sometimes when you're on some of those free to play sites, the odds may be a little different than what it would be like when you're actually wagering income to it. So something just to be aware of. I don't know if we're talking about this in details. One of the nice, I'll just bring it up briefly now. One of the nice things we're seeing with online platforms is the ability to set some responsible gambling limits. So how much I spend, how much I wager, the amount of time I have on there. We can set that in a much better way than we would be able to do at brick and mortar establishments. And also with online casino gambling, you can use a credit card. And for our state, you can use no more than one at a particular time to participate. So stock market. I don't know if you thought about the stock market as a form of gambling before today, but again, if we look at that definition that Kaitlin told us about, you have to put money into the stock market. You're uncertain if you're going to yield some dividends or get some returns from it. So there is that uncertainty that goes with stock market. Now, there are different levels. There's a continuum here. There's stuff that might be considered more low risk versus high risk. So if you think about your 401k, your 457, your retirement plans, that's more low risk. So what research has found is that over the years, the longer you have your income into a retirement plan, the more likely you are to get some positive returns at the end. But what we're seeing that's resembling more forms of gambling is more of the day trading, the really quick turnovers of money into the stock market, like things with the Robinhood app. What research has found is those type of behaviors are more likely to resemble traditional forms of gambling than what we would see with the more long-term investing. So more risky what we're seeing with Robinhood. And when we're thinking about what's going on online with cryptocurrency, we have even more risk that's occurring. So for those that are not familiar with cryptocurrency, it's taking your traditional goods and turning it over. Sorry about that. I should have turned my phone off. All right, it's taking your traditional income and turning it into virtual goods. And Kelly, if you could go ahead to that next slide, I'll talk a little bit about cryptocurrency there. So I'm turning that traditional money into virtual currency. There are many different types of cryptocurrency out there, and I'll tell you, it confuses me all the time. I'm always trying to catch up to what's going on within the cryptocurrency market. But again, over 9,000 forms. Bitcoin is the most popular type. Other popular ones, Dogecoin, Ethereum. And you can use cryptocurrency for online options such as Robinhood. Cryptocurrency is more popular with where it's being accepted. iTunes, look at some of the areas that are identified here, Subway, Xbox. So it's gaining more popularity, but it differs in the aspect where the dollar is going to be traditionally accepted anywhere. Where if I go into Walmart, I could use my dollar, but I might not be able to use cryptocurrency. So I think the biggest thing I want you to take away here with cryptocurrency and where it might linger with gambling is that things change really rapidly. The cryptocurrency stock market can differ from really hour, sometimes minutes to minutes. So there is more risk that goes involved in that if you're making quick transactions over a period of time. Let me check the chat. Any questions so far on different types of gambling in our state?
All right, so with that, we're going to transition into a little bit about video games. So video games are games played by electronically manipulating images produced by a computer program on a television or other just display screen. Many gaming apps are marketed to youth ages 2 to 17 and replicate real-life gambling opportunities, especially with role-playing or strategy type games where you can bet against odds using cards or dice. Also arcades, something we might not normally think about, but they look and function a lot like casinos, and they encourage gambling behavior. So you're spending money to trade in for the potential to win some prizes. So the types of video games that are currently out there, there are first-person shooter. So instead of watching your character act according to your commands, you get to become the character yourself. There's sports games. So fans that want to play the perfect game on their own, they get to choose their best player, make their own team, think of strategies. There's simulation, which attempts to copy various activities in the real life, in the form of a game. survival, where you collect resources, make tools or weapons, and you try to stay alive as long as possible. There's massively multiplayer online role-playing games where each player can control an avatar that interacts with other players. And then there's action or adventure games that require many of the same physical skills as action games, but offer some type of storyline, numerous characters, or an inventory system. And this slide is to provide you with just some of the very basics of the categories of gamers and determining one's motivation to play. So research shows that there are 3 different types. So there's the escaper, someone who is playing video games, who is trying to escape from something, or they're trying to gain something that they can't in the real physical world. There's an achiever, someone who plays games for the main purpose of achieving something. These gamers are typically more competitive in nature. And then there is the hardcore gamer who plays for both escape and achieving purposes. So someone who identifies as a hardcore gamer, they identify themselves as a gamer. And this category is the most at risk for problematic gaming. It doesn't mean that their gaming is problematic. It just means that they are most at risk. If you are interested in learning more about the gaming pieces, I encourage you to visit right on the bottom. It's intenta.digital for more information. Both Kaitlin and I took their 15-hour training, which provides a whole in-depth piece of gaming. We have someone named Cam Adair, which we'll go into in a little bit, coming to our state because March is Problem Gambling Awareness Month, and he's going to be doing a whole hour-and-a-half workshop on this, which might be really interesting, Dina, to you and your coalition. But just more information on that. But so now we're going to talk about the aspects within gaming that resemble gambling and how this comes into play.
Thanks, Kelly. I'll take it over from here. So we're going to talk a little bit about social casinos and app games. So these are apps in which players can play simulated gambling games. So this might be what Fred was talking about of online gambling, where it might be a free option and not necessarily for money. So we do see this in the Apple Store, to download. It is free. They're known as freemium games. So that means that they do not cost any money to purchase them, but that doesn't mean that there's not money involved in the game. So this might be young people playing, and then, you run out of lives and you have to pay the 99 cents to get another life, and then another 99 cents to keep going. And then eventually people do end up spending a good amount of money on these games that essentially were free. There's no age restriction when it comes to this. There's age recommendations on games, and we know games like Grand Theft Auto, which we just saw an image on the past slide, actually is recommended for age 17 and up. But I'm sure that there are many, many people that are under the age of 17 that are playing these games. And not only are people worried about the violence in these games, but we're concerned about the introduction to gambling. So where people most likely are talking about marijuana as a gateway drug, we are now considering gaming a gateway drug to gambling, because it does introduce people at a very young age to gambling type themes. It can trigger gambling in adults. It normalizes the behavior in youth. You can go to the next slide, Kelly. And then here we're going to be talking about skins, which are actually items in the game that can decorate your weapons or your characters. So it does not make you a better player in the game. People like to joke and say it just gives you street credit with your games. So there's a lot of people that have fear of missing out. There's specific items that are time limited, and so people tend to spend real world money to purchase these items. Or you could also participate in skins gambling, which is basically just trading the skins for virtual or physical money. You can go to the next slide, Kelly. And then loot boxes are mystery crates that contain randomized rewards with no guarantee of what's inside. They require no player skill. They're absolutely randomly determined. So they're very you can compare them to slot machines because it is completely random. So they use all the bells and the whistles the same way that slot machines do to light up and open it up. And you could get something that's an extremely rare item, such as a skin that would, make your weapon or your character look cooler. Or you could get something that you already have 100 of and that no one really cares about. So it's completely random. And again, you can earn these through games, or people are buying them with real money. And so this was an article that we found just kind of highlighting, do loot boxes really, are they really considered gambling? And in this article, it talked about 93% of children who play video games, up to 40% of them reported opening loot boxes. About 5% of gamers generate half of the entire revenue for boxes, which is concerning. And then they talk about young men being the most likely to use loot boxes, which makes sense because young males are more likely to participate in risk-taking behaviors anyway, and are more likely to develop problems with gaming and more likely to develop problems with gambling. And then I talked about the fear of missing out. So many of these games use these psychological nudges to encourage people to buy the loot boxes, just because they say it's limited time item and you don't want to miss out on that. And then moving into the gambling continuum. So we know that there are people on the left-hand side of this continuum who don't gamble at all. 95% of the population can gamble what we call responsibly, safely, for fun. And then there's 3 to 4% of the population is considered having problems, with 1 to 2% of the population meeting the diagnostic criteria for gambling disorder. And when we talk about populations that you all might be working with, youth rates are ×2. Substance use and mental health, people who have substance use and mental health concerns are ×10. And then people that are in the criminal justice or the Department of Correction population are ×20. And this is older research. So I'm really enthusiastic that we will get a prevalence study this year. And then hopefully we would be able to update some of this data, because it would be my guess that these numbers would continuously increase now with the increased offerings. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that prevalence looks like here in Connecticut. So when we're talking about that 1.5 to 2% of the population, many times people don't really think that that's a lot of people, because you're like, who cares, 1 to 2%. But in our small little state of Connecticut, that is almost 54,000 people that would meet the diagnostic criteria to be in treatment for a gambling disorder, which is enough to fill Fenway Park 1.5 times, or enough to fill Yankee Stadium once with a few people left standing. And then an additional 8% of the population are considered at risk, and we're going to get into the risk factors. So this just means that they're showing some level of risk or some type of problem associated with their gambling. And that's approximately 287,000 people here in Connecticut, which, if anybody's been to Mohegan Sun's arena, it's enough to attend 28 sold out concerts there, which is a lot of people. And then this is the gaming prevalence. So we know that 2.5 billion people game worldwide. The average age is 33. So we like to throw that in there, because I think a lot of times people are like, oh, gaming issues are a kid's thing, which it isn't. Everybody, it doesn't matter across the lifespan. People do enjoy playing video games. Age 18 to 25 are most at risk of developing a problem for gaming as well as gambling. There's almost an even split between gender of 54% male, 46% female. And then in the same way that gambling affects 3 to 4% of problematic gambling, 3 to 4% of people also are struggling with problematic gaming.
Thank you, Kaitlin. All right, going to talk a little bit about the brain on drugs and the similarities between drugs and gambling. When I was younger, some of you may remember this, but there was the Say No to Drugs campaign out there. And I remember that, the actor would have this egg and say, here's your brain on drugs, shh, go in the frying pan, you hear all this noise going on. As a young fella, I thought, wow, there's some impacts that are going on there if you're using drugs. What we've learned over the years is that they respond very similarly. The research of today's day sees that drugs are not only a brain disease, but gambling is as well. So if we look at the brain on drugs and gambling, they both affect our midbrain. So those pleasure-seeking areas of our brain, our dopamines, our serotonin levels that regulate how we feel, is impacted when a chemical is entering our system, but also with this behavior and how it responds to that dopamine in our reward system. We build tolerance, especially as you're getting more and more involved with the substance or the behavior, you need more of it. So gambling, I might need more money, I might need more games to get that same effect. The prefrontal cortex is weakened. So it helps us to understand how individuals that are using substances at a problematic level and also gambling are participating in behaviors they would not otherwise participate in. Crime, somebody that's never had a criminal justice history is now stealing to support their gambling. needing larger doses to get the effect from that substances, or increasing the amount of bets, just another way that we're talking about tolerance. We're seeing a loss of control with both. Heavy preoccupation, somebody that's really struggling, they might be at work, but they're thinking about the next time they could get that drug, or next time that they could go to the casino, or they could get to their phone so they could participate in online gambling. Challenges within the personal life, withdrawal. And when we're looking at withdrawal for gambling, feeling restless or irritable if you're unable to participate in the behavior. We see a lot of correlation with domestic violence or abuse-related issues when it comes to gambling. And then with both the substance and the behavior, you're repeatedly pursuing the experience despite the negative consequences that continue to accumulate as a result of all that's going on. So we're going to talk a little bit about differences. I'm going to try to do my condensed version of this because I know we're shorter on time here. But if we think about fantasies of success, with gambling, you might see some good luck charms that go with it where you might not see with substances. I might have to wear my lucky socks when I go to the casino. I have the lucky troll that's with me. There's no biological test where with substance, I might be able to identify it with a urine, but I can't do the same with gambling. I can't take a urine and dice fall out, or scratch off tickets fly out of my pocket when I come into the environment. It's more based on self-report, no biological test there. There's unpredictable outcomes. So gambling is intermittent reinforcement, which means, there's a chance I might win, but there's a chance that I'm going to have losses over a period of time. Where substances, if I'm using the substance, I'm likely going to have a response to what I'm taking. There's behavior not attributed to intoxication. So if I'm gambling for 2 or 3 days straight, I might look like I'm intoxicated, but there isn't that category like we would see with substances. More intense feelings of shame and guilt. I'm not saying that there's not shame and guilt with substance use disorders, because there definitely is. The one thing we see with gambling is that the stigma is greater here, where I think as a society, we're at a level that we understand substance-related disorders, substance-related conflicts, but we're not there with gambling yet. A lot of folks are still saying, well, look, you should just stop that behavior. It's causing problems. You just got to stop. I remember years ago, we were saying that with substances, but now we understand the brain connection, that there's a biopsychosocial connection to it as well, that it goes more than beyond the use. There's significant challenges that folks have. Although we see that in gambling, it's in the same category within DSM-5, as Kaitlin was talking about earlier, the DSM, because of the amount of similarities they have, but the understanding just isn't quite there yet. And hopefully over the years, we will see that same parity. Financial problems. With gambling, money is that fuel, in many cases, that gets you there. As we said earlier, it's not the only way you can gamble, but a lot of times it can be. So we're seeing people that are having significant debt when they come into treatment. Less tolerance from the public and judicial system. We talked a little bit about the stigma already in society. The judicial system. So there's not alternatives to incarceration with gambling like we might see if I'm having challenges with alcohol. Crimes for gambling, there's more financial related charges. So we might see a higher severity of crimes based on somebody with a severe gambling disorder. So hoping to raise that awareness, we work with the criminal justice system on providing trainings. We've worked with Department of Correction in the past and hope to continue to work with them to try to raise that awareness there, because we understand, there's victims that go with gambling disorder if crime is involved. We absolutely understand that. But how do we get it to a level where it's fair, where somebody serves their sentence and is not continuing to serve it? Because some of these financial challenges that can occur can be really, really high with somebody with severe gambling disorder. So how do we find that equality with the punishment versus what's already been served? So it can a lot of times appear to be a money problem, but just like with substances, the brain is impacted. There are other factors that go beyond the money. The intensity of family anger, and I think that has a lot to do with the stigma that we're not as just aware yet. But if you think about somebody that has a severe gambling disorder, that's an older adult that maybe spent their whole life saving money and depleted all their funding gambling, it's much harder to get that back because you depleted that finances there. If somebody gambled away their kids' college fund, it's harder to get that back. So there is a lot of intensity of family anger, again, because of the importance of finances in our society and how much it can be depleted for somebody that's having challenges with gambling. And I already talked a bit about this greater stigma with gambling at this time. So we're not going to show this video today, but when Kelly sends out the PowerPoint to everyone, this is a nice cartoon that talks in a better way about how gambling impacts the brain than what I taught you all about. It's a cute video. It's something that you can use with youth that you work with other coalitions that you're working with to help understand that how the brain is impacted by addictive behaviors. And another difference between gambling and substance use disorders is the near miss. So this means that I'm close to win, but I haven't actually experienced it. If you look at the little graphic on the left side, where there's that slot machine on top. So the near miss is I get a cherry, I get an almost cherry on the slot machine, but a bar comes out. So I'm not getting the win, but my brain can respond to that as a win, especially if I'm participating in gambling at a high level. So this study was done with those that were having challenges with gambling and control. So when both groups had a win, the spike was high. There was that, the dopamine was going, there was a lot of excitement that was occurring. For those that were gambling more, when they had a near miss, it was almost as high as that win, where the controls, it was lower. So with gambling, you don't have to have that win to get that response in your brain like you experience that win. If you look at the study on the right, showing how the brain is elevated with the win. And if you look at the near miss, it's not as high, but there is still activity going on with the brain that's showing that there's excitement going on. All right, before I was involved in this work, if I saw something on that left side, I'd say, oh, the slot machine's warming up. The next hit, I'm going to get a win. In reality, what is shown there is no different than if I had a cherry, a bar, and another item. Each spin is its own random occurrence. One is not going to predict what's going to happen afterwards. But I think a lot of time, because of our brain gets excited from it, we're thinking that we are due for a win when that's not the reality. And here's just another example. If you're experiencing a potential loss, our brain isn't going to be elevated. But if you have that win, your brain is excited. So whether I'm going to get a win at the casino, my brain is excited, versus when my kids were little and they used to like to watch Thomas the Train, my brain was like what was going on the left. It didn't excite me much. The trains were always mad at each other. I would fall asleep within the first couple minutes. That brain activity wasn't there, but different if I'm expected to get that win.
And this is just talking a little bit about why it makes gambling so enticing, and also why it makes it so addictive. Is if you remember any psychology class, B.F. Skinner with the operant conditioning. So we're able to manipulate behavior by using reinforcement. So with gambling, it's on an intermittent reward schedule, which means it's not every single time. So not only do we not know when it's going to happen, we also don't know what the magnitude of that jackpot would be, which makes people want to continue to participate in that behavior. And we know that the more immediate the gratification, or the more rapid speed of play, or the quicker the gambling happens, like in slot machines or scratch tickets, the more addictive the behavior is. And then going back to remembering the 1 and 2% and all of the prevalence numbers that I threw out there, on average, one individual working through a gambling problem actually impacts an additional 7 to 20 other people in their lives, which could be their family members or their community. So I am terrible at math, but if you take those numbers from that previous slide and multiply it by 7 to 20, that's even more people that are experiencing a direct harm related to gambling here in our state. And here are a few warning signs if problem gambling might be an issue, or some red flags. That is all you can think about. People might be lying or hiding the amount of time or money spent gambling, risking or losing relationships, unable to stop or reduce their gambling no matter how hard they try. So they might need some intervention or some clinical help, continuing despite problems, using to cope or escape, spending more time and money, and then giving up other activities where gambling might have just taken priority. And then a few of the risk factors that I'm going to highlight, I'm not going to read them all, but the ones that I'm most focused on is that early big win or early exposure. So we know with substances, the earlier someone starts to use substances, the more likely they are to develop a problem with it, which is the same thing with gambling. So we're seeing that when we ask people, how old were you when you first experienced gambling? And people that are we're working with are usually saying around 5, 6, 7, much younger than when they might have been first exposed to substances. And then accessibility, which is a huge issue now, like everyone has been saying on this presentation, with online sports and online casino gambling, it's in the palm of your hand. You can do it anytime, any day. And then also the issue that it has with mental health and substance use, having a parent that experiences gambling problems, and then people with having financial issues might think that gambling is the way that they can solve those problems. And then we're going to play this video. Hopefully we have enough time to get through the video. So this is Elijah, who got himself into trouble with gaming and gambling.
It is just under 7 minutes, but it is really eye-opening and worth the watch. So we are going to put it on. It was co-produced with ESPN. And we'll send the link out after as well.
I'd always just think about gambling. I forgot what it was like to hang out with friends and do stuff. And I just became like nothing.
16-year-old Elijah Ballard says he never thought a video game would turn him into a compulsive gambler. He was an outgoing kid who enjoyed Little League baseball and summer camp. When he was 12, he started playing the war game Counter-Strike Global Offensive in the bedroom of his suburban St. Louis home.
I was just stuck in that world. I kept telling myself I want to stop doing this, but I never could.
Counter-Strike Global Offensive, or CSGO, is one of the most widely played esports games in the world. Tens of millions of gamers watch tournaments that sell out pro sports arenas.
The fan base is insane. I mean, the viewership, it's more than the NBA, it's more than the NHL, it's more than the MLB.
Ryan Morrison is a New York attorney who specializes in esports.
Why is my 13-year-old watching Counter-Strike so long? Why is he so invested in this old game that was around when I was a kid? Oh, it turns out it's because he's gambling illegally on it.
CSGO is a major part of an estimated $5 billion esports gambling economy, easily accessed by kids like Elijah. That economy is fueled by status symbols called skins. CSGO players use skins to decorate their guns and knives so they stand out.
It doesn't change anything in the game. It just makes the gun look cooler.
Valve, the company that makes CSGO, also makes the skins, and it makes some harder to find than others.
You can buy and sell these skins, or you can win these skins. These skins now all of a sudden had monetary values assigned to them. It's silly, but it's something people are obsessed with. Why would anybody care what their gun looks like? Why would you collect a skin? It's a lot like collecting baseball cards or something like that.
Elijah used his father's credit card to start buying skins and stored them in his Valve account. Then he saw what a friend had.
My friend had $100 in his inventory, and I was like, dang, where'd you get all that, all those good skins? And he said he bet them on this website. And then I was like, oh, I need to try that out.
Elijah discovered that by linking his Valve account to gambling sites, he could use his skins to bet on everything from Counter-Strike tournaments to simple, fast-paced games like roulette or even coin flips.
At your height, how much were you up?
I was never up.
You were a bad gambler.
Yeah.
At your height, how much were you down?
$10,000.
Please, Trevor, win this shit. Oh, you won it.
Oh my God!
While Elijah was losing money, celebrity gamers like Trevor Martin were glamorizing a higher stakes world.
Trevor.
Martin posted a video of himself betting on a site called CSGO Lotto and titled it, How to Win $13,000 in 5 Minutes.
If you're a 13-year-old watching at home, what do?
You go to that website, you click a few buttons, and you try to make that money, but you don't. Instead, you go there and you lose your money.
Come on.
Yes! There you go, baby! There you go, baby!
Another popular gamer, Tom Cassell, posted a video of himself winning a $1,000 knife skin, also on CSGO Lotto.
The color of the tip on one side is red, and then the other side is yellow.
These viewers, these underage kids are already sold. They already adore you.
In Toronto, a gamer who goes by the name Honor the Call was curious about Martin and Cassell's relationship with CSGO Lotto, the site they were betting on. He asked outside the lines not to reveal his face or real name.
I opened google.com. I typed in Trevor Martin. I typed in CSGO Lotto. So in the next few minutes, I'm looking at legal documents which show that Trevor Martin actually owns the site. I found some info and I want to show it to my viewers.
Last June, Honor the Call posted a series of blistering videos exposing Martin and Cassell as owners of CSGO Lotto.
He f***ing owns the damn site. And look, what the f***, Tom Castle is the vice president. Trevor and Tom, in all seriousness, please stop. What you are promoting here is illegal gambling to your underage fans. When you are playing against a site owner, you can arrive to the conclusion that this whole betting is rigged.
I have no idea how I'm going to record this video, dude.
After Honor the Call's videos went viral,
All right, guys, so
Martin posted a response.
my connection to CSGO Lotto has been a matter of public record since the company was first organized in December of 2015. However, I do feel like I owe you guys an apology. I am sorry to each and every one of you who felt like that was not made clear enough to you. And
Martin has denied that CSGO Lotto's odds were rigged in his favor. Martin and Cassell declined to talk to Outside the Lines. The Federal Trade Commission has requested information about CSGO Lotto.
They make millions of dollars before this gambling stuff, and it's disgusting what they did to abuse their child fan base.
Dude, I have a $1,000 knife.
It's straight up fraud in a lot of jurisdictions.
As for Elijah, he says he didn't know where to turn when he hit rock bottom.
I kept losing. I just kept spending more. I talked to a suicide prevention hotline. I was 16 years old. I lost all this money and I wanted to just end my life.
Today, Elijah is in counseling and admits he's addicted to gambling. The high school sophomore rediscovered sports and has good friends again. Elijah, what are we looking at here?
We're looking at how much I spent.
He says at one point, he had more than $8,300 worth of skins in his Valve account, most of them purchased with his parents' money. And how much of that is left?
4 cents.
Does it make you feel like a different person now?
Yeah. I don't even know who that is. It's not me.
Where are you going?
At least that's not who I want it to be.
You're the best.
So thank you for bearing with us and watching that video. I know we are very short on time, but this slide is just highlighting on the left-hand side, talking about people that might be playing video games or also gambling for fun. And then on the right-hand side, when it starts to become a problem. And Kelly, do you want to just go through the next couple slides quickly?
Yes.
So we did include some information about Stack Deck. So Kelly's going to introduce that, and then I'll move into some of the activities.
Sure. And so because you're all part of a coalition, so when we're looking about what we can do about this or how we can integrate gambling prevention into the work that you're already doing. So it starts by first raising awareness and education on topics such as what is considered gambling. Do you think the majority of members within your communities know what is considered gambling? Do you think the youth in your community know what is considered gambling? So raising awareness and education on the risks, understanding how games are played, the odds of winning, financial literacy, understanding an appropriate budget and how much someone can afford to gamble or play with. Are they able to pay their monthly bills? Is it putting them into debt? And even understanding how lines of credit or credit cards work. So a lot of these talking points and topics can be integrated into maybe perhaps a class that they're already taking in school. So maybe it's a math class, maybe it's an economics class. So thinking of ways of how, just like you try to integrate substance prevention into the work that's already being done, adding gambling into it. Certain times of the year. So March is Problem Gambling Awareness Month. So it's very timely that you had us here. But maybe during March Madness or the Super Bowl, maybe there's certain times of the year that gambling could be a prevalent topic. Actually, maybe it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. We'll post the list also of all the events happening for March. There is a presentation called Fish and Chips, and it is about working specifically with colleges and college athletes to try to get gambling into the topic of conversation. And it's called Fish and Chips because they go into schools asking to talk about gambling, and the response that they're met with is that they have bigger fish to fry. So how do we keep gambling to be as much of a priority as other substances and as other topics? So maybe if you have social media accounts, adding it to some of their posts, your online newsletters, if you're already sending out information. So just trying to have gambling be part of the conversation. And these are the stacked deck. Kaitlin, Dina, how are we doing on time?
We're at 3:35. I'd say maybe like 10 more minutes.
Oh, perfect. Kaitlin, do you want to quickly talk about Stack Deck?
Sure. So Stack Deck is actually a curriculum that is for grades 9 through 12, and it's the only evidence-based prevention curriculum around gambling awareness. And so these are the goals of the program. They really want to educate people about the related risks associated with gambling, encourage responsible decision-making all across the lifespan, not only just about gambling, and then working on preventing youth from developing problems related to their gambling. And so we're going to go through the next couple slides very quickly, but what it does is it educates people on gambling history, the types of gambling like we talked about today, really letting people know that these businesses are in the business of making money and that it's not a fair chance. So there is such thing as a house edge. So every time you play against the house, your chance of winning is only about 25 to 49%, depending on what type of game you're playing. And then that US citizens lost 160 billion to the commercial gambling industry in 2018. So again, it is a business. We also educate people on the law of averages. And so like Kelly said, integrating this into a math class when you're teaching law of averages would be beneficial to youth, I think. So this is just an activity that people can do, talking about flipping a coin. A lot of times when people are flipping coins, if it gets heads 5 times, people can convince themselves it's going to be heads again because heads are hot, or it's going to be tails because tails are due. So you can kind of convince yourself one way or the other. And then this is a graph about how much money does the average person lose after betting $1 1,000 times. So this is really just to help people know that eventually you're not going to win with gambling. It just depends on how quickly you're going to lose your money, depending on the type of game that you play. And so again, the house edge, sad but true. So we try to educate people that there's no type of gambling that allows you to make money in the long run. Your only choice is how fast you want to lose your money. And that types of games like lottery, bingo, slot machines are more quickly, you're going to lose your money. And then card games or roulette are a slower way to lose your money, but still losing. And then talking about beginner's luck. So your best chance of winning is the first time you play. The more times you play, the more likely it is that you would have lost of your money, because that is due to the law of averages.
You did that very quickly. And so then in addition to education and raising awareness, there's also responsible gambling efforts or harm reduction strategies that can also be promoted throughout your community. So we went over this when we were talking about the different types of gambling, but starting by educating ourselves on the legal ages to gamble in Connecticut. So alcohol, tobacco, marijuana is 21 across the board, and gambling depends on what you're playing. So again, 18 for the lottery, to play bingo at Foxwoods or to participate in fantasy sports. 21 is sports betting, casinos, and off-track betting. And there are no age restrictions for charitable games, as Kaitlin had mentioned earlier. So more prevention strategies. So are you able to do compliance checks to ensure that retailers are properly checking IDs? Are you doing any kind of merchant education for the realtors in your community? So if you're already doing that for alcohol, tobacco, is there a way that you can add in gambling to that conversation? There are some campaigns, Connecticut Lottery. So during the holidays, they do give a toy, not a ticket, to encourage adults to not gift lottery tickets as holiday gifts, as Kaitlin was talking about with the risk factors, early wins, early access, also are risks. And then the Region 3, they have a whole campaign on 21 for a reason, which, we can send you some more information on that too, just some things to promote. And this one's back to Kaitlin.
Yeah, and this is just a campaign that we did recently last year. In June, we launched the Responsible Play the CT Way. So it's just really educating people on responsible ways to gamble if they choose to do that, because we know that at this point, with gambling being everywhere, it's really unrealistic to think that people are just going to choose not to partake. So this is a collaboration with all of the industry partners at the bottom of the screen. You can go to the next slide, Kelly. And these are just a few ways that people can gamble safer. So we like to let people know that they should be limiting the amounts of substances that they're using while gambling, because we know that that lowers the inhibition, making sure people are setting time and money limits, making sure you're only gambling with the money that you have. Try not to win back the money that you've lost or chase your losses. If you're no longer having fun, stop playing, making sure that you're balancing it with other activities. And making sure that you're not gambling again to escape from negative issues in your life or to cope with anything, or gamble when you're upset or stressed. And then making sure that people do know where to go if they need help.
And real quick here, this is the voluntary self-exclusion that's available for online gambling and sports betting. It can be 1 year, 5 year, lifetime for somebody that's concerned with the behavior and they want to stop. And to get off the exclusion list, you need to go through the Department of Consumer Protection on any of those exclusion times, and websites where you can access it are there. Go ahead, Kelly.
And this is more information about our helpline and how you can find us. You can call us anytime, any day. We are 24/7. You can contact our helpline right there at 1-888-789-7777. You can also text and chat with us. And then the next slide is really just talking about all of the services that CCPG offer. So we do facilitate the 24-hour crisis helpline. We also do awareness and education trainings like this. So thank you very much for having us here for your coalition, and then outreach as well. So if there's any upcoming events in your communities that you want to do screening days or health fairs, anything like that, youth, senior centers, anything, especially now with COVID numbers being lower, we are hoping to get back into the community and doing that. So please feel free to reach out if you need anything.
As Kelly mentioned in the beginning, we have better choice gambling treatment programs that provide care specifically for gamblers and persons affected. The provider in your region is Communicare, with services in Branford, Milford, Ansonia. And by the summer, early fall, they will have services in Middletown as well. So again, that's for gamblers, persons affected. If you have any questions, please let us know. I don't want to take too much time. We got 5 minutes left, so I want us to go on through. So Kelly's going to send out resources. Here's some additional resources on gambling throughout the state. The next two slides are going to talk about resources for gaming. Here's some local providers that we're aware of that can offer services for gaming disorder. And the next slide talks about some international resources that are available. Top one is what Kelly and Kaitlin talked about before, with Cam Adair is a site he oversees. Lots of great resources there. And the last one, KindBridge, offers telehealth services for gaming disorder.
If any of you are interested in getting more involved with the gambling prevention that we have statewide, so our state is divided into 5 different regions, and within each region we have a gambling awareness team who meet on a quarterly basis, which brings together treatment, prevention, recovery, as well as community members from various sectors to share resources, collect gambling specific data. They assess community readiness. How ready are our communities to address problem gambling and gaming? They create gambling informed programs and services and just help raise awareness. So it connects all of the partners together. So we highly encourage you to check that out. We do have a statewide website. It's gamblingawarenessct.org. Here, there's all the information on the regional gambling awareness teams, as well as our schedule of upcoming trainings. Right now, within the next 2 weeks, we have topics on cryptocurrency, sports betting, again, what was like fish and chips. So there's a ton. Oh, look at this. Here we have. And so this was ours today. We have a 3-part prevention training series that Kaitlin and I do this Thursday. You don't have to attend all 3, but it is specifically on gambling and as a co-occurring disorder. So we talk a lot about mental health and substances, as well as suicide and the relation between that and gambling. So this information is all up on that website, and we'll put it in the chat so that you have that link. We'll be able to send these slides to you as well, so that you can have these resources as well as the video links. And this was a lot of information in a short period of time. Here are our email addresses, but we're happy to answer any questions that you have, or come back and talk about any particular topic that you need us to. So that is it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much. I took a note. I think Kaitlin, you mentioned the youngest is like 2 or something, that you're exposed to gambling. And I can remember being in elementary school and I won the pool at the Super Bowl. And I was like, it's cold outside. I want to go in the pool. But then I had a fat stack of cash. So I understand the high of winning, betting, or gambling very young and how it can relate into when you're older. So thank you all for sharing.
Thanks, Dina.
I know you said it was long, but I think that video is so key and like so worth the time. So it's nothing, I mean, you guys can talk about it, but until you hear a kid talking about that personally, it really just cements everything you're saying.
Yeah.
It's intense.
So Dina and Nina, have we ever surveyed our youth with questions about gambling and gaming? And
we have one question.
Is that on the national survey or did we add it?
It was on the longer survey we used to do, and then when we shortened it, we added it under sort of risky behaviors.
Do we, if we chose to do a separate survey just for this, would we be able to use our funds from drug free to do that, or would we have to seek other funding for that?
No,
like,
we can
is
use
it a qualifier?
Yeah, it's
qualifying?
fine. It's fine to do it. I just would never recommend doing a survey just on that. I mean, I just think capacity wise, you're going to be, I mean, you mean for adults or for youth?
Youth. Just to kind of, look, I'm assuming that we have our share of problems, but I wondered if there was a way to measure the magnitude of it.
Yeah, I mean, you could also do focus groups, right? I mean, you can get a lot of information. I'm just looking at what we had for gambling on the survey.
And then a question to our presenters. Are there any studies, have there been any studies done on demographics? For instance, would a community with a certain set of demographics be more likely to have more or less problems in this area with our youth and or adults?
Fred, not to put you on the spot, but I feel like you might be able to answer that one better than me.
I'll take that one, Kaitlin. So yeah, we know through research that those that have the least means are having the most challenges with gambling, especially with the adult population. If you're thinking about youth, a good website, youthgambling.org. Dr. Jeff Deravinsky out of Canada is really one of the forefront researchers in this field with youth. But we know for youth, it's more than double. But when we think with youth behaviors, with other risk behaviors, things co-occur. You know, in the state of Connecticut, looking at data with youth, those that were gambling were more likely to participate in other risk behaviors, substance use, bullying type of behaviors. So they can often go hand in hand. But those that are demographics, that for those that are having more challenges in the environment are struggling more with gambling, along with other substance use disorders. We do know that those that are younger are more at risk as well, as we're looking at young adults. Laura, did that help? Did you have any other thoughts you were thinking about as far as?
Yeah, well, I'm particularly thinking about the gaming, right? So I'm thinking maybe, so it makes sense what you said, right? That if the lower resource people who are looking to get money, right, in this kind of way. But I'm also thinking that maybe higher resource communities kids might have access to devices where they could do this under the radar, almost, because of those that kind of access.
So recent data we've seen with sports betting. So sports betting is usually a younger group. So we have noticed with resources coming out of the National Council on Problem Gambling, with sports betting, there has been more income than what we would have traditionally seen as being a problematic area. Now gaming, I don't know if you have anything off the top of your head. It's still newer field as far as research that's out there. I know in Connecticut, UConn was working on a study some years back, and what they had found is that those with that were on the spectrum, some attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, were having more issues with gaming. But beyond that, I'm not sure of a lot of data that's out there. I don't know, Kaitlin, were you aware of anything further with gaming?
No, not that I'm aware of, but Camadare has a great website, and I know one of the resources is gamequitters.org, I think it is. If you Google Camadare, he'll come up, but he is a person who is in long-term recovery from a gaming disorder, and he has a whole 90-day detox, and he has some videos and some research highlights on there. So he would be the person that I would ask.
I'm going to put that link in the chat box because it has Kim's upcoming presentation that is going to be on March 23rd. Kaitlin has some really interesting data too that's coming out of the helpline. They're now able to track what region someone's calling from and the type of gambling that they're experiencing issues with, as well as additional demographic and co-occurring issues as well. I know that the Region 2 Gambling Awareness Team, they have the report of what's happening in your region. Kaitlin, I don't know if that's something you can share with Dina.
Yeah, I can definitely send it over, and then feel free to send it out to anybody that's on here, and just has the demographic information of what's going on in your region.
But more specific. Do
you guys know if the 211 has any tracking around gambling or gaming? Any like keynotes?
Not that I know of. I know, yeah, we've been trying to work with 211. So in other states, the 211 in their state actually answers the problem gambling helpline. And in our state, we do it on our own. But right now we're in the process of trying to get a contact over at 211 to continue to update our resources, because they're supposed to be asking. So if somebody did call 211 and had a gambling problem, they should be able to ask those questions to get them assessed. And then if they don't know where to send them, which I would hope that they would by now, if not, they would just send them back over to our helpline, and then we would get them connected through Better Choice treatment.
Yeah, because that would be just another data source for you. And then the other one I was thinking of is the crisis text line, because they actually track their data. I just don't know if they have any keywords around gaming or gambling, but that's very youth driven, and that could be great information for you guys too. And I believe I have the link for that data I could send if you want it.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure too. Sorry, I muted the wrong computer. If anybody has any more questions, I'm sure the presenters can stay a little longer, but if you do have to hop off, I just want to remind everybody about our next meeting. Let me get the date absolutely correct. It'll be May 9th at 2:30, probably also still in this hybrid setting. And we're going to hear from some prevention professionals on the new marijuana and regulations that are in the works right now. And then two, a quick volunteer opportunity to help stuff take home deactivation bags that we'll give out at Drug Take Back Day. If you're interested or looking for some sort of volunteer opportunity, you can email and reach out and we can figure something out. But if anybody has any more questions or if you have to go, thank you all for coming.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Nina, did you get a chance to look up that question, or do we not have results yet?
So it's going to be on the survey we're doing in April.
Okay.
And it's a general gambling it says gambling for money or possessions. And then we gave examples of lottery, scratch, sports betting, skins, loot boxes. So it's just part of our risky behavior section.
Okay.
You know, we don't have like standardized questions around gambling, which of course I think we should, but certainly happy to work with Kelly on that.
And that's statewide. There really isn't any consistency in any survey. I know this, you don't use the Search Institute survey?
We did up until now.
And even that just asks if you've.
It's just one question.
Within the past 12 months, so it's not. But part of, and Fred, you can talk a little bit more about digging. So that's even part of our treatment providers. So if you're going to see a treatment provider for either substance or mental health concerns, on a normal basis, they don't even ask about gambling. I know that when I just went to get my physical, only because of the role I'm in, I asked, I said, do you ever ask any questions about gambling? And the APRN, she was like, no, we don't. She's like, is that something you want to talk about? But like, at least she followed up with that question, but it's not in any type of screening. So the funding through Diggin that Fred oversees is that it works with the treatment providers to add gambling into that screening piece. So that way they're at least bringing up the topic of conversation. And if it does meet certain criteria, then it then goes to the next phase where they address it, or they can then refer them out to one of our better choice providers. So that's something that we need to work on as a state, is just making it more of a relevant topic of conversation with youth and with adults and within our system of care. So
has there been any talk about regulations regarding where advertisements can occur? Because if you do any kind of games, online games, these ads are popping up now. And some of these games are more to adults, but some kids are doing it too. So have we heard any ideas about regulating that so that we can keep it away from, just like, smoking ads are regulated on TV now?
So Laura, something like you talk about, Kaitlin and Kelly were talking about loot boxes earlier. So, studies out there show that it more resembles gambling than not. And there are countries like Netherlands and Belgium that have said, absolutely, this is a form of gambling. Youth cannot participate in this. In our country, we're not quite there yet. I know there are groups that are advocating for games that have forms of gambling into them, that they shouldn't be available for youth, but nothing yet. Laura, I wanted to let you know too, I put my email address in there. So if there are particular population studies, research that you want to see, send me an email. I have a lot on gambling, gaming, not as much, but I also put what Kaitlin mentioned, the gamequitters.com from Cam Adair. You might find some of that gaming data on his site.
And also just to add in there, Laura, about the regulations, I know that both the Connecticut Council on Problem Gambling and DMLWC are in collaboration with the Department of Consumer Protection. So as of right now, we're trying to have those conversations about the marketing being regulated. I don't think that they are regulated right now, but our hope is that, at least for our end, from CCPG and the advocacy, that we are looking to limit those ads and where they can advertise, especially with the mailers, seeing if we can get some kind of unsubscribe to getting mailers sent home to people, because there's people that have been in long-term recovery from a gambling disorder and are now getting things sent to their house. So any way that we can try to limit the advertising or eliminate the advertising to certain people, if they want that, that's definitely something that we're ready to advocate for.
And the self restricting, like you can restrict your access at Foxwoods and the casinos. Is that the only place, or can you restrict yourself from some of these gaming sites too?
Yeah, so there's two options. So you can do it at the brick and mortar, so that you are excluding yourself from the casino, the property itself, in person. And then You can also do the online portal. So the website that we showed in the presentation is actually exclusion from all online platforms. So you wouldn't even be able to download the games or anything like that. The platforms, as far as like FanDuel and DraftKings, you wouldn't be able to bet on any of those sites. And what I've been told from DCP is that if you do go on the self-exclusion list, then you don't get the marketing associated, but not everybody wants to participate in voluntary self-exclusion. They might just not want to be bombarded with the ads.
So can parents do a form of that in parental controls on computers and other devices at the home?
So self-exclusion is only for the gambling, and you have to be 21, I believe, to participate in that. It is self-exclusion, so a parent couldn't do that, but there are like Gamban and Gamblock. There's some software out there that can also block online gambling sites. And I'm told that it also works on gaming sites. So that would probably be where I would direct you, would be like a Gamban or a Gamblock type of software. And then games within itself in your phone, there's parental limits that people could set that way too.
Dina, maybe we can disseminate that kind of information. I think that would be helpful. And then lastly, I want to thank you for mentioning crypto. You know, I mean, sites like Venmo are promoting it. There's so many easy ways to do it. And then that other thing that you can do, you can buy visuals or
NFTs.
or whatever, whatever that is. I mean, that's nuts. I'm just learning about it. Like, what?
In that presentation on cryptocurrency by James Syfax, so it's happening next week, he'll probably talk about that as well. He's well versed in crypto and NFTs as well. That's where I get all my information, is from him.
That one's Tuesday from 9 to
that's
10.
it. I always forget what that is.
Dina, I'll send you a PDF of the slides only because the videos they take up so much space, and I'll send you the link to the ESPN and the brain development video as well. So the brain connection.
Yeah, we'll be sure to share them out.
Great.
Yeah. Well, I will stay in the room until we're all done, but I think we are good. If anybody else has any questions, and thank you all so much for presenting. It's a new topic to share, so it's great.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye all.
Can you stay on and for just a minute?
Yep. I just have to figure out how to stop recording now.